So we'll be taking a look at the Philando Castile case, and kind of I looked over this video a lot, and you know, I should mention that I am African American before saying this, if it matters any much. Honestly, the color doesn't matter to me. So after looking this video over and over and looking at kind of the one-sided party of the officer being in the wrong, I've decided to share my opinion on what I saw in this video. I should start off by saying that almost too many people rely on their feelings and kind of just personal biasness, if you will, when it comes down to a lot of these things. But whatever the case may be, this was truly just a sad and tragic situation for both sides, the officer's family and him, and Philando's family. But there should be a couple things noted throughout this video. So the first thing that I picked up on after looking through this video was that the cop did not approach the car with his hand on his gun. Not once at all did he act hostile towards the victim, but he was pretty friendly, pretty laid back, chill, just, you know, like most officers. He just wasn't hostile. He described exactly to the victim, here's what's wrong, here's why I pulled you over. You know, you have a tail light that's out on the right. On the top here, he was very specific. You have one here on the left, this one is about to go out. Pretty smooth. If you're paying attention, once again, he did not have his hand on his victim, including while the victim searched for his paperwork. I mean, it was probably about 5 seconds or so that he allowed him to look around and whatnot, and said, once again, he was not hostile. He had a laid back, relaxed posture. He did not put his hand on his gun, though, until the victim mentioned that he in fact did have a firearm. Now, there just has to be a level of common sense. I highly doubt anyone with an illegal firearm is going to mention that they have a firearm to an officer for a simple traffic stop that would not result in the car being searched. So even if, you know, his car was being searched and he is carrying it illegally, at least he's not risking his life to prevent some jail time. I think in that situation, listen, if you're going over this situation, I'm not going to mention an illegal firearm. Now, like I said, this is not me, because like I said, I would not end up in this situation. But if you're looking at this logically, you're not going to mention a firearm, you illegally carrying a firearm to an officer for something as simple as your tail light being out. The officer is not going to search your car because your tail light is out. He did not bring any kind of vibe that that's what he was looking to do. Now, let's say that he is legally carrying the firearm, which I believe they said was the thing. Then the smartest option that has been used by many licensed gun carriers is handing the cop the gun license with the rest of his paperwork. Once again, the cop did not have his hand on his gun throughout the whole sequence until the victim mentioned that he was carrying a firearm. The officer had a relaxed posture. He allowed the victim to search for the paperwork in the vehicle. Another option, if the victim didn't want to reach for his gun's license, say for instance he had it in his back pocket, which a lot of men tend to carry their wallets in their back pocket. I do. So he could tell the cop as he's handing him the paperwork, hey, listen, officer, I didn't want to reach for my license. It's in my back pocket. So I'm just letting you know that I do have a license to carry a firearm. He could then let the officer know, one, where the firearm is in the car. Typically, if you are handing your license to the officer or you're mentioning that, then he's going to ask, where is it at? He's going to be like, all right, cool, boom, you have a nice day, or whatever the next process is. Or you can let the cop know, I have, you know, a firearm in the car, you're free to search the car. Even in a nervous situation, this is just kind of common sense. I understand that, yeah, he mentioned, okay, you know what, I have a firearm. And yeah, that's great. Um, but ultimately, like I said, it's thinking about these situations. Either one, he's never been pulled over when carrying a firearm. Who knows? Really kind of through this, but it's kind of minuscule. But once again, like I said, he can let him know that he can search the car or where the firearm is. Once again, the cop is not giving off a hostile vibe whatsoever. Not once in me looking at this video that I feel, okay, well, you know what, this cop is kind of hostile towards him. He was pretty laid back. It's like a typical traffic stop whatsoever. However, the most important and crucial part of this whole entire sequence is the dialogue. And that's the dialogue following the victim mentioning he had a firearm. Now, there's got to be some key things noted here. The first thing, the officer warned the victim 3 times. That's got to be noted. He warned him 3 times before he actually shot him. He only shot after the 3rd shot, not during the 3rd warning, but after the 3rd warning. We need to understand that just how, it's black folks, or whether it's minorities in general, or anybody really, you're warned to how to approach a situation. So typically, like I said, if you're black, then okay, mentioning how to approach the situation in terms of being stopped by a cop, how you're supposed to be doing, keeping your hands on, just like you have that protocol. Guess what? Cops have a protocol on how to respond to a potentially dangerous situation. We just need to understand that. Like, we expect them not to have their protocol that they're following, that they're not supposed to follow protocol, because we're only looking at it with a narrow mindset. Once again, simply saying I'm not, or I'm not reaching for it, is simply not enough. There's been all too many situations that I've studied, that I've looked over, hundreds, and I do mean hundreds, where people have said they are not going to do something and do the opposite. I mean, this is just, we act like that this is not something prominent. It's something that's very, very prominent in today's society, and always has been. Also, this could fall into the same category of the victim having, I believe it was his girlfriend and his daughter in the car. Now, like I said, once again, this is a real sad and tragic situation, because like I said, you have this girlfriend without her boyfriend, and you, most importantly, if anything of all of this, you have this young child that may be growing, or will be growing up without her father. That is always, a tough situation, no matter what the case may be. So, like I said, my prayers are with that family, and their daughter. But once again, there's been all too many times that people have been pulled over. They have other people in the car, and they have done something crazy while the other people were in the car with them. If you don't believe me, just go watch World's Dumbest Criminals, and that will pretty much show you exactly just how crazy people can act in a moment of, nervousness or whatever the case may be. The only thing that matters, though, is what the victim was doing while the officer was telling him not to reach for his weapon. We can look at 2 scenarios here. Scenario A says the victim put his hands in the air or in a stationary, unmoved position, whether it's on the steering wheel, that he's not moving. Whatever the case may be, he's not moving, he's not reaching. Scenario B, the victim continues to reach for whatever he was reaching for after being warned 3 times. If it's scenario A, then the cop is completely unjustified. There's no reason that you should fire your weapon 7 times at the victim if he's not moving. There is no reason whatsoever. Now, if it's scenario B, then the cop is justified by how the situation presented itself. What do I mean by that? He gave the victim 3 warnings. He did not shoot until after the 3rd warning. If the victim was still reaching for whatever it is at this point, she should have stopped completely. If the officer tells you once, okay, don't reach for it, then like I said, he still was kind of a little hesitant. The cop still hesitant the 2nd time. He's like, don't reach for it. There was a sternness in his voice. 3rd time says, don't reach for it, and then guess what? After that, he fired his shots. it doesn't matter what you were reaching for at this point. If the officer says don't reach, then you just stop completely. You say, okay, you know what? I put my hands on the steering wheel. I don't want the situation to escalate. Like I said, you got to be smart in a lot of these situations, whether it's a cop or someone else. Like I said, you have bank tellers, cashiers. When there's a potential situation for a robbery, guess what? They're taught protocol on how to act so that they don't have others lose their lives, or they don't lose their lives personally. They are taught how to respond. If we were to look at this situation hypothetically, when it comes down to the aftermath, and that's more of, okay, how people base their views with little information, they would say, okay, you know what? We got two scenarios here. The victim was reaching for anything other than a firearm, so whether it was a wallet or whatnot, then guess what? The cop wouldn't be unjustified. That's how we would look at it. The cop is unjustified. You know, he was only reaching for a wallet. You know, he was only reaching for a Tic Tac, or whatever the case may be. But he wasn't reaching for a gun. Now, scenario B says that the victim was in fact reaching for a firearm, then guess what? The cop would be justified. And like I said, it's sad that that's the way many people look at it, because we can only tell the aftermath. We don't know what's going on in the situation whatsoever. Like I said, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what the victim did after being warned. Did he continue to reach for what he was reaching for, or did he remain stationary?